Neurons are the functional unit of the nervous system. They are constantly processing and transmitting information using both electrical and chemical signals. You use this in everyday life, such as increasing heart rate when a threat is perceived, or allowing reflexes to occur. The first step of receiving a signal begins at the dendrite. This can be an excitatory, which makes the neuron fire due to an increased action potential, or inhibitory, which prevents the neuron from firing. The dendrite can receive thousands of signals, however, it will only fire down the axon if there are more excitatory than inhibitory signals. The response to the stimulus will be all or none. This means that there cannot be a variable strength of response, rather, the signal will result in a full response or none at all. As the signal travels down the axon, this results in an action potential, a rapid change of electrical charge. The neuron has a resting membrane potential of -70 mV. This is due to the concentration of sodium ions outside the membrane. While there are more potassium ions inside in comparison to the outside, the charge is still negative overall. When a stimulus is received, the sodium voltage-gated channel opens, allowing positive ions to flow in along the concentration gradient and thus depolarizing the membrane. To be polar means to have a difference between positive and negative charges. It then follows that depolarization will increase the positive charge inside the membrane, which brings it to the threshold potential of -55 mV. In order to bring the charge back to its resting potential, voltage-gated potassium ions will open and sodium ion channels will close. This allows potassium ions to leave the membrane, thus decreasing the charge inside and repolarizing the membrane. However, the channels will stay open slightly longer, which means too many potassium ions leave the membrane, causing hyperpolarization as the inside of the membrane is more negative than its resting potential. The sodium-potassium pump will carry 3 sodium ions out of the axon and 2 potassium ions in until the resting potential of -70 mV is reached. This is the refractory period, when no new signals can be sent. As the signal reaches the terminal end of the axon, it must cross a small gap called the synapse. In order to do this, chemical messengers, called neurotransmitters, are used. These are stored in synaptic vesicles, which fuse to the neural membrane, and bind to receptors on the other neuron. This will then have an excitatory or inhibitory impulse. Once the neurotransmitters have performed their function, it will reuptake to the vesicle where it can then be used for the next signal. In normally functioning neurons, the axon is insulated with a myelin sheath. Within this sheath are gaps called nodes of rendezvous. This allows the electrical impulse to jump from one node to another, greatly speeding up transmission. However, sometimes the sheath can become damaged. In the case of multiple sclerosis, scarring on the sheath means that the signal must travel along the entire axon. This results in slow or delayed movement, which can become incredibly debilitating. Undoubtedly, the neuron is one of the most important cells in the human body. Thank you for watching.